Hey, welcome back, everybody. Draskyl here, once again, doing another replay for the support players out there who are trying to learn what to do, how to play, early parts of the game, mid parts of the game, so on and so forth. We've already done quite a few series, or excuse me, quite a few videos in this series, and this time around we're going to be covering a little bit more in detail, let's say the first 8 to 10 minutes of the game. How to make a plan, how to give your core the best possible odds of having success within the early stages of the game so that once you get to the parts in the game where you maybe can't contribute so much, hopefully your early game impact will have mattered. So in this game, we're going to be watching a Dawnbreaker. I believe this is position 4. I quickly skimmed through this replay. To be honest, I didn't. Originally, I was going to do a different video for this game, and then I decided against it, and then I wanted to do something else. So this video is going to be covering that exclusively. So we'll just go ahead and start. When it comes to setting up for a good lane, the first thing is understanding what your hero actually offers. So in regards to Dawnbreaker, she has very good stats. Her abilities do a ton of damage. Starbreaker is one of the, if not the highest damage ability, I think, for any melee support in the entire game at level 1. So if your goal is to output damage, then this is more or less the hero that you want to be. And then later on in the game, you transition into more kind of utility. You can heal people with the ulti, so on and so forth. So her stats are great. 310 movement speed, 4 armor. She has 61 damage with just a fairy fire. Nothing else in her inventory grants stats, and you'll already notice that she's kind of flexing the power of the hero, right? Running into them, zoning out the other heroes. She's using her stats as a means of saying, don't go to this rune, I'm going to secure it for my team. Trading with me is inefficient because your hero at level 1 is just not as strong as mine. And if you do make a trade, it's going to benefit me, and I have a lot of regen in my inventory that also coincides with the general theme of playing Dawnbreaker, which is trade, trade, trade all the time. I assume, as again, I've only briefly skimmed this replay, that we're going to be seeing a lot of it. So already we can do a quick pause. I just want you guys to take note of how he started the lane. First thing was he was checking for a block. So when the Timber and the Hoodwink were on the wave, he was looking to see if there was a block. Maybe he could negate the range creep being in front by standing in front of it himself. He wouldn't be really in any danger of dying because both heroes are level 1. And then instead of tanking the wave, he lets the wave walk up so that the wave doesn't push down any further than it already is. I'll just say that matchup-wise, this lane is going to be kind of rough. Timber is very hard to kill posts like level 2 or 3 once it gets a couple of points into reactive armor, or you could even see the theoretical Timber Chain not Chakram, Whirling Death build that you can kill Morphling with. I think somebody at the major did that build. Maybe it was Ice Ice Ice, I can't remember. But either way, lane's going to be kind of rough. So it's very important at this stage when the heroes are not high level yet that you use your hero to its highest potential. So what does that mean? Hit the heroes in the lane, like your enemies. In this case, hitting Hoodwink or Timber, both are fine because Timber doesn't have reactive. He's already used Chain. We know that because he just casted it. So we can already assume that hitting him is okay. Hitting the Hoodwink is okay. We just want to stop the Morphling from taking damage, right? We're going to use our awesome stats and whatever level 1 skill he decides to get, and we're just going to bop. That's it. This is also something that you'll notice the very high-level supports do, is they don't really care too much about the lane equilibrium. At least in the very, very early stages. I know a lot of people who play cores, safe lane, whatnot, they get really annoyed when people kind of go in super aggressive and just kind of mess up where the wave is for the safe laner. But I want people to just look at this situation, right? The Timber is chasing a little bit. She's walking away so that the Morphling can get full EXP. There are quite a few creeps under the tower, but because she's walking at the Hoodwink, and the Hoodwink is the ranged hero in the lane, also very important to keep in mind. If it's double ranged, it's going to be kind of hard if you get double wave like this to protect your safe laner, because you're going to be getting hit by 2 heroes quite often. But because the core in the lane is melee, harassing onto the tower, stuff like that, is mostly going to be done just through spell casting. So if this Timber wants to pressure the Morphling, he has to go in, Timber Chain under the T1, and then be careful about autoing, because he obviously doesn't have reactive yet. No reactive means you can't take the tower. You know, you could very easily make a mistake in this situation, take a lot of damage, and that would totally not be worth. So going all out, taking like 60% of Hoodwink's HP, and then also forcing the Timber to kind of run at you a little bit to protect his own support, means that this guy is going to be able to hit creeps a lot less pressured under the T1. Let's just hop back on player perspective here. Now Timber walks back in, and he wants to try to deny and stuff, and we did talk about the Timber Chain usage that he would probably do under the T1. But here, he goes back in to make sure that the Morph is not the one taking damage, okay? He walks back, gets hit, and then buys tangos, assuming that this is more or less going to be the same thing that keeps happening. Morphling doesn't offer a lot to the lane, right? He kind of doesn't do anything until, I don't know, level 5 or 6, when Morph starts being a real ability and you can leverage that health and damage and stuff a little bit more freely. But for now, let's just say he's a range creep, right? He's a range creep with less range. So the coolest thing that I can do for him is to be the guy that gets hit and takes damage so he doesn't have to worry about it. Obviously, there are limits. You don't just want to die. You don't want to walk in and just feed. So he walks into Fog. He pops his salve. He's got his Starbreaker ready if he wants to. He's even looking like he's going to go for a pull. So this is really good lane awareness. This is a pull that probably a lot of people would not do. But if you'll notice, let's go back like 10 seconds. I'll go to free cam. The wave is already under the tower. So he actually has more creeps that will be alive very shortly than the enemy. So if you pull like this and the enemy offlane can kill your safe laner, then this pull could be considered as bad. I mean, personally, I don't know what's going to happen with this pull, but I think it's something to always look at when you are going to pull, to look at the lane first. And he sees, hey, tower is hitting the wave. It's probably going to push at least a little bit. I don't think they'll be able to dive the Morph. That's the thought process. Plus, it kind of coincides with our plan. The Morphling wants EXP really badly. More points in a Morph means it's much harder to kill that hero. Eventually, he'll get waveform. And then for us, level 2 is actually a power spike because we get Celestial Hammer, which is a really big amount of damage, a slow, an escape, initiation. It's everything. That skill is just an everything skill. So very, very good to have.
A spectacular dunk!
All right, he gets 3 creeps.
First blood.
The 3 creep pull is actually a tech. I know it's being contested right here. But the 3 creep pull or the 2 creep pull is actually a tech that a lot of high-level players are doing right now. And I could be wrong about the theory, but my assumption is that if you pull the whole camp, or excuse me, if you pull the whole wave to the camp, in a lot of cases, it will just kill the camp and then you'll end up shoving. I think in this case, pulling 3 or less creeps is ideal because it means that the wave itself will die, and then the lane doesn't push out, but you're still theoretically denying them EXP, and then if they do a double contest, as they are right now, then your Morphling is going to be able to farm under the tower again. We've already said that's fine. So that's my current understanding. That could be wrong, but that is my current working theory. So Morph's hitting some creeps. His courier might die. Starbreaker to stop the Timber from killing it. That's good. He's going to lose his own courier. He does get the regen, though, so that's nice. You'll notice he buys a salve and tangos. Again, just everything for the core. 5 players. Get the notepads out. Everything for the core. You don't need to buy boots. You don't need to buy any of these fancy items. All you need is for your safe laner to get creeps. More regen going to be ferried out when his courier's alive. Fortunately, he's only level 2, so the courier's not dead for that long. And if we open up the CS chart here, Morphling is actually the highest CS in the game. Some 5s will not be able to play as aggressively as Dawn, which is fine. You're not always going to be supporting a Morphling. Some lanes, it might be more beneficial for you to just pull, or maybe your core doesn't need your help at all. But in this game, Morphling is obviously very weak at the lower level, and Dawnbreaker is very strong. So since you can't actually go for kills, the best way to leverage your strength as the 5 is to just ensure that both of the enemy heroes are never just going on your Morphling at the same time, which is being accomplished by him walking into the hoodwink like this. And then if you ever find an opportunity to do like a 2 or a 3 pull, you kind of reset the lane a bit, and then you allow the Morphling to safely farm onto the tower. Now, they're level 3. So this is the point in the lane where I would assume that it starts getting a bit sketchy. So when they're onto the tower, the Dawn just walks back, making sure always to be zoning out the hoodwink so she can't go for any sort of kills. Now this skill usage here, seems kind of weird and random, but there is a very specific purpose that he uses Starbreaker on the wave. And he just wants it to die so that they don't feel comfortable being under the T1. Casting Starbreaker on the hoodwink without boots is going to be pretty tough. This hero's 320. This hero's 310. And Starbreaker sets your movement speed, so you can't really, you know, once you're in it, you can't move any faster. Having this situation is probably worst case for the lane, because the Dawnbreaker is out of mana, very low HP, with no regen, and the Morphling is being hit by spells. So this is the situation that we want to avoid at all costs, but the way that he's trying to salvage it is by using the Starbreaker to kill the creeps, so that hopefully the Timber and the Hoodwink will feel like they have to go back instead of committing for the kill. So let's watch and see what happens. Little bit of damage on the wave. Courier's back. This Courier only contains items that grant mana, so he may just have to run home or get another salve. The most efficient thing to do would be probably to die to neutrals somehow, but since Dawnbreaker's so tanky, the only neutrals you can die to really are Ancients. So he will go back to base, but the Morphling has managed to get a kill. So how does this kill even happen, right? You could look at this, like let's go back. So the Hoodwink's under the tower, or goes under the tower, excuse me. This guy doesn't have regen either, but this Hoodwink is only low because of how consistently the Dawn was walking in, using her spells to harass, like earlier when she was standing in this area, roughly outside of the tower range, and she used the hammer to get in and deal damage. If this guy wasn't low, this kill would not be possible. It just would not be possible, right? The Morphling's not going to kill a full health Hoodwink with one adaptive strike and a couple of autos. It just won't happen. So the only reason this kill happens, besides that, obviously the Hoodwink makes a mistake, overcommits. You can easily just use that as an argument as well. But the flip side is that the support player was doing what he's supposed to do and dealing damage to the 4 and utilizing her early game strength so that this guy is not full HP, so when he does make a mistake, it kills him. That's why it's important to understand that trading as some of these heroes is so effective, because this just doesn't happen if they don't trade. So yeah, he goes for an aggro toggle. It fails, and then he dies. Dawn's still walking back to base, feeling pretty good about how the lane's going. 29 and 4 on the Morphling, still tied for the highest in the game with the Timber. All things considered, I would say that's pretty good. This is not an easy lane, by the way. I'd say a lot of other supports that weren't Dawnbreaker probably would have struggled a lot. We're going to do a TP bottle fill for the Tinker. He's getting pretty close to level 6. No Observer, so we're not looking to necessarily establish vision. This should be a dead Hoodwink. Wait a little bit too long on the Starbreaker there. He's going to walk in to eat some of the Edict damage. Hopefully save the Tinker. And he helps to get a kill. Very nice. Notice the second that he knew that the Hoodwink wasn't going to die before I knew the Hoodwink wasn't going to die. And it's because, obviously, you can use the Bushwhack to stop Starbreaker, and as soon as he gets stunned, it cancels your animation, and then the Hoodwink just walks away. Plus, he doesn't have boots. So now that we're here, we have identified that the top part of the map is very hard to occupy. He's going to get a nice little double stack here using the Celestial Hammer. Everything that he's doing so far has been efficient. So he buys the regen for himself to trade. He has a Tinker on his team. He goes for a TP bottle fill after he walks back to base, understanding that right now Timber's cutting the wave. Dawnbreaker cannot do anything about this. Her damage is not nearly good enough to be able to stop a Timber from cutting. So in this situation, this is actually a good point to talk about. If you're playing against a hero like Timber, who is just going to sit behind the tier 1, as you can see on the minimap right now, the Timber is up here. He's kind of just chilling, you know, doing Timber things, 3 points in reactive. If the Timber is doing this, and the safe lane hero is not able to apply kill threat, then being in this lane as the 4 or the 5 kind of feels whack, right? Because your Timber doesn't need you if you're the 4, and if he can't die to the 1, then him being up here is still efficient on his own, because he just is forever, right? He just lives. Once he gets 6, and you have Chakram, then as the 4 it makes sense to be here, because you can just kill whoever occupies the lane. As the 5, being here is whack because you can't kill this guy. Being up here is a complete waste of time because a Morphling and a level 5, level 3 Dawnbreaker, the picture confused me for a second there, don't have enough damage collectively to deal with him at all. So it's better to utilize other parts on the map, like you have a Tinker mid. He TPs in anticipation, understanding that, hey, I can't do shit, right? I can't do anything to this guy. So I'm going to fill my Tinker's bottle because he's running on empty. It was kind of just lucky that the Lesh walked in and died. It was kind of like an overextension. But again, if he doesn't go for the TP bottle fill, that play never happens. Because the Leshrac wouldn't have walked up. He wouldn't have been able to split damage with the Edict. And there would have been, like, even if he did overcommit, who knows if he would have died, right? So just these efficiency plays are setting up for kills on their own. He's just doing stuff correctly, and then kills are happening as a result. This is like a concept that a lot of supports just don't get. If you're in the right place, doing the right stuff, sometimes people just feed because they don't expect you to be there, or they think they can get a kill when they can't. But all we're trying to do is make correct choices, like not overthink it, right? Bottle fill is not complicated. Stacking a camp for a Tinker is not complicated. Recognizing that a Timber is really hard to kill, and I probably am wasting my time here, also not that complicated. But this is just the bread and butter of every game as a support, the stuff that you need to be thinking about. You know, where's my best, what's the best thing I can do for my team? And so far, I think that more or less every move that the Dawn has made has just been solid. You know, solid and correct. The double creep stack is actually something I didn't even know you could do on this hero, but it makes sense. I think this ability is like, yeah, it's 1100 range. So he's going to do it again. He didn't even go back top. He didn't even look at the lane. I don't know if this one actually gets both still. Oh, I think it did. So now he has 2 triple stacked camps for his Tinker. The next thing here is going to be, can he defend it? Very nice usage of the Starbreaker. Now he'll die for this, but he does save his Tinker. I believe the Hoodwink was also behind the tower. Okay, maybe he didn't save him. I spoke too soon. Caster's curse. Tinker's still gonna die.
He's heating up.
Alright. So that wasn't like the best result, but we still know that the Tinker is gonna have a lot of stuff to farm when he revives. He's got those camps. Now imagine if he hadn't done this. You know, the Tinker's game would feel a lot worse. He's pinging out the stacks. He's like, yo, this stuff is here. He's putting a lot of emphasis on protecting the camp. He puts down sentries to make sure the camp isn't blocked or there's no obs. The worst thing that can happen for him right now is a Leshrac or the Timber come and take these. That would be just, you know, an enormous amount of economical damage dealt. I'm not sure if he even got those, to be honest. I'd have to look. So that this this kind of thing that's happening right now, I believe the best course of action for both the mid and the safe support is that the Tinker would farm the stacks and the Dawn would sit mid and get 6. That's what I believe is like the most efficient course of action. I don't know if that's what happens, but in this situation, if you're stacking for a hero that is very good at killing stacks, typically the correct thing to do is to take the mid lane, because A, it's very hard to go on the mid lane. A lot of the times people can TP there very quickly, or they can just walk because it's the center of the map, right? It's the focal point. It's the quickest place to get to, and it's also why it's so important to have that tower alive. But getting that 6 gives you the heck is this ability called? Solar Guardian, that's the one. I don't know why that's so hard for me to remember. Anyway, so you get this 6, your Tinker's farming some stacks, and then you have kind of a, what you would refer to loosely as a power spike, where you can potentially make something happen on the map. Now, Dire's lineup is pretty slow. There's not a lot of heroes that are great to play around with Solar Guardian, so even if he hits 6, it's not great, but having it is definitely better than not having it. So we'll see what happens if the Tinker actually goes and farms that or not.
Too big, too fast, and too strong.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
So he's going to spot the Hoodwink. Even though Hoodwink's level 6 and he's level 4, he's still going a little bit aggressively here.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack. This won't be pretty.
Oof, that is a dead squirrel. So that move tells us something too. If there was a ward on this Spire, I doubt that kill is actually able to happen. So those types of kills could give you a lot of information as a support, because if a guy walks in like that, good chance there's either somebody behind him, or in this case, the guy just, you know, he didn't see it, right? Same thing could be said for this. The Omni Knight is just kind of hanging around. Now this move, like the general walk towards bottom lane, as I mentioned, this is a slow lineup. And what I mean by slow is that Alchemist, Tinker, and Morphling are all the cores, and these heroes need items in order to effectively use their hero. So if that's the case, and you're playing a hero like Dawnbreaker, the next best thing you can do besides stacking creeps is to be around a hero on the map who can actually deal damage and theoretically make a play. Now, without Blink Dagger on Tinker and whatever item Offline Alchemist builds, honestly, I'd have to check his inventory. I'm not sure. Okay, he's buying Ags. So until these items are coming out, the only person who really does good damage and has any sort of like a CC effect in conjunction with that is Enchantress. And her CC comes from either using Enchant or, in this case, having the Troll Creep. So making the distinction of, hey, Enchantress is my main form of damage, my hero offers a CC in the form of a stun and a slow, and I also do a pretty good amount of damage. Pairing with this hero is your best odds of having something good happen on the map. Because the last thing that your 3 greedy cores want is people invading their jungle and nothing else happening on the map. So this effectively does 2 things. It kills both supports, just the walk bottom. It tells us that there's no vision, right? And then we are getting offensive pressure as opposed to reacting to things that the enemy team is doing, which with these types of cores just sucks, right? Like a Tinker can defend a tower on his own. These heroes don't have Blink Daggers on Radiant. He can TP and march, and he should be fine. So we don't have to emphasize sitting behind him when we can sit behind another hero that actually does damage, offers a stun, and we can use that to apply actual pressure. So I love the move bottom. Honestly, I'm not even sure if I would have been able to do this in real time. It's obviously a lot easier to do it when you're watching a game. But just having that guy in your mind as a support where you're like, I do damage. This guy also does damage. I should go play with him. Now this DP is basically to prevent Leshrac from stealing the stack, but I don't think they had much success there. And I believe he's going to die for this. So, as I was just saying a little while ago, if you're in a game like this and your cores are greedy, playing your side of the map feels kind of bad if you're a support. So when you TP to your own side of the map like this, obviously he's doing it because he really wants the stack that he made to go to his heroes. But the enemy team is just so much stronger at this point in the game just by virtue of having better skills to cast. Leshrac, strong hero, does a lot of damage, has a stun. Timber does a lot of damage, very mobile, hard to kill. Hoodwink does a lot of damage, has a stun. Like, there's a theme here. The theme is that Radiant's lineup just has really good abilities baseline. They don't really need that many items. They just need levels. And once they have the levels, they go in, they get their kills. So the philosophy is to defend the stack, but the general move, I think, is to just let it go because you don't have a choice. If you do contest it, and I think this is actually like maybe the first mistake you could possibly construe from this game, is like being here even to defend the stack is probably still wrong. Because you don't get to decide if they take it or not. They're just going to kill you. Your heroes are weak. You know, no boots. Stuff like that. The heroes that are strong, if they're in that area, you cannot be there. It just doesn't... It's unfortunate that the Tinker and the Alchemist didn't take the stacks way sooner. Like, that's another thing you could just say is, hey, these stacks should just be dead way before this Leshrac gets here. Because it's been stacked for a while, right? It's been like at least 3 minutes. So there's no reason why they should have still been alive in the first place. But the TP definitely did not feel good. I do want to say really quickly that we're not going through this whole game, by the way. In fact, I probably wanted to stop it at around 10. Because I think a majority of what I wanted to cover has already kind of been covered at this point. We talked about items. We talked about, you know, how he's prioritizing his movements on the map. We talked about the stacking. We talked about what the general consensus is for how he wants to play the game, at least in the early stages. So I think this video will probably be on a shorter side, but that's fine. Hopefully you guys have learned a little something. I'm going to hit play because all I can hear is Leshrac Pulse Nova. All right, there we go. That's better. So when you're playing supports, if we just wanted to make like a quick little list of things, identify when your lane is strong and when it's not, if you can. Obviously, if you can't, then you have a lot of work to do in your matchup knowledge. And then once that lane has kind of ended for whatever reason, what's the next best thing you can do, whether it be provide vision or, I mean, it's always going to be vision, but where do I want my vision? Who can I play with that's going to allow me to do something cool on the map? Do we need to wait for something in particular? Like, do we need levels? Do we need items? Just like general open-ended questions about the state of the game will help you a lot as a player to evolve and kind of think about somebody else's game besides your own. Because at the end of the day, support is about the cores that you're helping. It's not about your game. That's why at 10 minutes, a 9k player or 10k player doesn't have boots in his inventory. It's because it's not about him. It's about the other people in the game. And he still did his job very well, mind you, without even having those boots. So again, this was a 5 Dawnbreaker game. Hope you guys learned a little bit of something from this. I'm Draskyl. If you guys want to check me out on Twitch, it's just twitch.tv/Draskyl. Stream basically every day. And we'll be making a lot more of this content coming up in the future. So if you guys have any ideas for stuff that you want to see, feel free to hop in the stream, drop me a line, and we'll see if we can make it happen. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.